You're listening to the most fraudulent F1 podcast with Dan, aka Engine Note 11.
I secretly moonlight as Helmut Marko at race weekends.
And Blake.
And Spanners, because Blake's stuck in America after going to the Circuit of Americas for the US Grand Prix. So fuck him. And as a replacement, we are completing our podcast exchange program that we did. I went on Missed Apex for the Singapore Grand Prix?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, where Red Bull had an absolute stinker. So it's only fair that now Lewis Hamilton's been disqualified. We should bring you Spanners.
I was going to say, that is the worst weekend to bring me on. It's all right to admit, isn't it, here, that I am a Lewis Hamilton. I'm a Lewis Hamilton fan. Sorry, Engine Breaking Pod listeners. And this is a heartbreaking one to bring me on for. And I was very visibly annoyed and upset as the decision to disqualify Lewis Hamilton and some other people that I don't care about came through live on the live stream. And I posted the live reaction on the Missed Apex TikTok, but you could just see my face falling and it was just utter shock and like, wow, are you kidding? And somebody sent me a message going, oh, I bet you cried yourself to sleep. No, that's wrong. I cried and stayed awake and ranted on the internet because it's just that pure fan experience of actually celebrating a pretty decent race. Yeah, he didn't win, but you go, wow, the team kind of let him down. Maybe Norris could have opened the barn door for Hamilton in the same way that he did for Verstappen. Maybe the pit stops could have been faster, but Lewis raced really well. This is great. This gives us hope. And the car looked kind of good. And it got cruelly whipped away from under us.
Yeah. Did it look good because it was illegal, or did it look good because Red Bull ran theirs too high? So they were legal. Lots of questions. Are you going to get them answered here? No, probably not. But there you go. But
I've
thanks
got
for listening,
guesses.
everyone.
I can do guesses if you want.
Yeah, why not? This is we operate this podcast on vibes. Blake is the knowledgeable one. I'm just the bloke that stole a living working in F1 for 6 years.
Let's see. Let's look at your live chat. Sabu Maru says, "Hey Spanners, cheaty car equals cheaty car." So yeah, Lewis Hamilton did great. I wonder. Like, obviously, the margins are fine, and since these new regulations came in, since the ground effect, that's kind of brought the plank back into play because before this, we'd not really heard about the plank. The last disqualification was in 1994, I think, on the Ferrari. So it's not really been something that's an issue until last season. I think Red Bull had some wear on the plank, but not a measured point. And then, of course, we had all the stuff around the technical directives over the summer. And you saw Red Bull in Singapore. Singapore was the only time that Verstappen before this weekend had his plank inspected. Because like an angry nerd at 4 a.m., I was going through all the scrutineering reports because I was just really interested. Because you go, disqualified for the plank, that's not happened before. So you go, when was Verstappen tested, for example? He was tested at Singapore, where Red Bull tried to bring in a new floor, the floor they're running now, and they had to revert back to the old floor. And this is, I'm guessing a little bit, but I think the common knowledge is in order to make that old floor work on the bumps, they cranked the ride height up, had a really bad weekend. And that was a weekend where they had their plank scrutineered. So Lewis Hamilton before this weekend has only been scrutineered for the plank one time. And that was when he was on the podium in Spain. So I put to you that anytime Hamilton finishes on the podium, they go and check his plank. Let's get him. Let's see what we can do.
You want to start? This podcast thrives on conspiracies. So by all means,
good. In that case, I'm fit right in.
You can go for it. But I honestly, even working in F1 for the time I did, I was surprised to learn that not every car is checked.
Yes, yeah. So it's more like a random drugs test kind of thing. So people were really upset about that. People were saying, well, if you tested 4 cars and half of them failed, you should have then changed the whole schedule of the post-race to inspect everyone. And it's just not practical, is it? There's not the time to go, no, everything stop getting on planes to places. We want to check everyone now. I think it's fair to say if you check 4, which by the way, even 4 is a lot. I was looking down and most of the time it's none or 2. So this time they've checked 4 and it would be a good one to check the cars out because it was bumpy and there was, you go, right, if we're going to catch anyone out, we'll catch them out here. But is that the purpose of that regulation? To catch people out at the bumpiest possible track? So they go, okay, well, the Mercedes car looks like it was working, but it was like probably freak bumps rather than say every lap in Spa where Verstappen was lifting to make sure he didn't bottom out. This is probably a little bit of a more irregular track surface, catching them out after one Friday practice session. So you go, well, what's the aim then of the scrutineering? Okay, so we found 50% of the samples we tested failed. That's something then to look at next time. That's something that you'll talk to the teams about and go, okay, in our spot check, 50% failed. So actually everyone else gets a little bit of a heads up now to not fail it in the future. But it's an interesting one. Yeah, you're right. Like I knew nothing about the scrutineering process. And now I've just sat and read every scrutineering report from this season and learned loads. I recommend it. I'll give you a link to the documents that you can share with your viewers and listeners. And if you've just got like a spare half an hour, sit and read a few FIA post-race reports. It's a really interesting insight into what the officials are doing.
Yeah, if we give that to our listeners, they're going to realise we're frauds and we just regurgitate everything out of
was that your secret given away?
The FIA documents portal. But testing the 4 cars, like you say, is normally it's only like 1, 2, maybe at a push you get 3.
There's been none for loads of them.
Yeah, and this time we get 4. Now I wonder if they tested the first 2, Hamilton and Charles, they both failed, and then they thought, well, shit, we better test 2 more just in case. Otherwise, they kept testing until they actually got someone that was legal, and they were like, okay, it's not everyone, thank God. And they just sort of got to 4, and they thought, yeah, that'll do, 50%. That's a pass in our books. We'll take that.
Do you know the thing that surprised me, if you like your conspiracy theories? The thing that surprised me is it's not random. So I thought maybe something would be generated or draw straws out of a hat, but it's actually actively chosen. So they have to go out of their way and go, well, shall we inspect planks today? Yes, we shall. Who shall we inspect? Derek and Billy Bob. And you go, well, actually, that is, and I'm not, it's Joe Bauer is the head scrutineer they talk about all the time. So whilst absolutely not suggesting any wrongdoing there, that system is open to conscious and unconscious bias. And,
fraudulence.
Well, it's open to that, and it's also open to gaming the referee. So now your team, Red Bull, does have a slight bit of history of gaming the referee. In fact, I think it's a compliment. Do you Manchester United in the 90s, everyone said they get more decisions, they get more penalties, they get let off because they had a system where they would systematically game the referee throughout the game and put the referee under pressure. Now, Red Bull are fantastic at putting the referee under pressure and knowing the rules, understanding the laws, and playing the system. So playing the referee, you could argue, is part of the sport. And now you can't say that Red Bull haven't benefited from doing that, from playing the officials. They have. And in a way, like, well done. What rules have they broken doing that? They haven't broken any.
No, I wouldn't say Red Bull have gained that. I'd say one person has, and his name's Jonathan Wheatley. And if I'm ever in court on a murder charge, I want that man to be my lawyer.
Man. And whoever is the person that gets Aston Martin off of all those charges. You remember when Aston Martin touched the car and you're not supposed to before the 5-second penalty? And then they argued that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. They argued that because one time it wasn't punished, they also shouldn't be punished, which I think you could find a precedent for a law not being punished for just about anything. But that wasn't the only one they got off with. And they nearly got away with Sebastian Vettel losing that podium when they had a fuel leak and they couldn't provide a fuel sample. So I don't know. Playing the referee is part of it. But I was just surprised that the scrutineering process is that open. So I didn't know that. Now we do. We can add a whole layer of tinfoil hattery to everything.
Right. It's been long enough now, and I may have mentioned this already on the podcast once or mentioned it somewhere, but that whole Hungarian Grand Prix where Vettel didn't have enough fuel.
Oh.
I heard from someone that was very close to all that happening that the fuel sample was knocked over.
Oh, no.
And they weren't able to draw enough to bring it back up to level again.
So the official line was that it was a fuel leak, and that's why
technically it was a fuel leak, but when someone knocked it
of the container. Oh, mate,
imagine. That is what I heard from inside the pit lane.
So from an Aston Martin person, that would be the only way.
I wouldn't possibly confirm.
Yeah,
or
but if it was
that.
an FIA official, they wouldn't, because then you could just go, whoops, I've knocked over Lewis Hamilton's fuel sample. Oh, no. So if you're Derek in the fuel sample department, that is a really, really bad day. And that won't be like a high profile mechanic or anything. That will be like an intern job, probably. I don't know, like, you know, running the fuel sample back and forward. Oh no, or do they have a specialist fuel person in a team, Dan?
Yes, they do have
Ah.
a lubricants and fuel person from their representatives. I don't know who Aston Martin run. I don't know who their official.
Let's not drag
Yeah.
out the names of all the past Aston Martin
Yeah.
fuel people, because people will be straight
Yeah.
on Twitter going, Dan said that you knocked it over, because it costing a podium. Yeah, and it does make a difference what position you lose from this kind of thing. So in a way, it's better that Lewis Hamilton didn't charge down Max Verstappen at the end of that race. Lose a win. If he'd have lost a win, I mean, my lot was going off anyway. Imagine if it had lost a win.
Yeah, Team LH having a field day. Bless them.
I think you're allowed to be upset. I think
No,
you're allowed
I
to be upset
agree.
And it's come off the back of Lewis's error in the previous race with George Russell. It's come off the back of, I think, maybe 4 or 5 incidents with George Russell as well. So in a season where he's still showing pace, the car has been terrible. His teammate has been fast enough to be in the way, but not fast enough to be substantially better. That's the frustration. You just go, oh, this could have been so much more this season. So get it all out of the way this season. But this was on the back of like a few very bad weekends. There was like finally something to celebrate finally. But you know, because us Lewis Hamilton fans, we've had a rough journey, Dan. There's barely been a thing to celebrate over the last 15 years. It's been hard.
Jeddah 2021, was that the last win for Lewis?
Is that really?
I think so.
But I think like Lewis Hamilton fans are not used to seasons without a win at all.
No,
so after 2008, after 2008, 2009, he was a bit of a thug and seemed to be playing billiards. I think he hit Massa 8 or 9 times in 2009. I think he had a coming together with Maldonado as well, and so that was.
I mean, who didn't?
Yeah, that's true. 2010, Valencia clashed with Maldonado. 2010, back on form again, and then 2011, he just seemed to go disappear into his personal life, and Button disappeared, didn't he, for his second place in the championship. 2012, again, good but frustrated by that McLaren. So we've had wilderness years before. It hasn't all been glory, you know.
No, but it could be worse though. Spanners, try working at Red Bull when they had Renault engines. That was a fun time.
Oh, do you know what? I thought, were they not Tag Heuers? I thought they were Tag Heuers.
Only for 1 year, I think.
Oh, was it? Okay, I remember.
And then Tag stopped paying the money to brand it.
There was a question at a press conference where they said, you know, oh, are you struggling? Are you unhappy? Or, you know, do you want to credit Renault or something like that for a win? And he went, we don't have Renaults. We have Tag Heuers, actually.
Nah. Oh, fun times. But I'll give you some hope as a Mercedes fan. And this is something that me and Blake have picked up on in a few races now with the Mercedes. The last stint of the Mercedes, they were lapping and gaining time on Max. So there is something inherently strange we've realised with the W14, where that when it's on low fuel, its race pace is just godly, and we don't know where it comes from. And I don't think Mercedes really knows either, to be honest. But yeah, so that's some good news with the floor upgrade as well.
The illegal floor upgrade, am I right?
I mean,
I think it was genuinely unlucky, especially as there's another team that fell foul of that sprint weekend bumpy track. It's they'll learn, and it's a brand new floor for them as well. I do think it was genuinely unlucky, and they'll be kicking themselves.
Yeah, and I don't think those are the only 2 cars that would have fallen foul. I think if they had the time and did the whole grid, I think we'd have seen at least 2 more in addition to those 2 failing.
Is Mexico smooth like a billiard ball?
It's smoother than CotA, but that's not hard, to be honest. CotA is one of the most unforgiving tracks. And the problem with it as well is it changes every year because they've got a subsidence issue at that track.
They said I was a fool to build a F1 track in a swamp, but I did it anyway. And that track sunk. But then I built another track and that one sunk. Then I built a third track. So yeah, subsidence is an issue, but they were really ambitious with that track. I remember when, you know, they first announced it and they were showing like the mound that they built for turn 1, and it's worth it because turn 1's great. But if you've got an inherent subsidence issue, that doesn't sound very fixable.
No. And every year they're resurfacing it. And guess what? They're resurfacing it again next year. It's every time you turn up there, you have no idea what the surface is going to be like, what the bumps are going to be like. So, yeah, I'm not surprised that we had these issues with ride height and planks and whatnot. But yeah, shame really, because I actually quite like the circuit. They need to sort out the bloody foundations, but I don't know how you do that. I'm not a builder. Oh, I'm just smashing my desk up. Classic. Nothing but professionalism on the Engine Braking podcast. There we go, sorted. So yeah, but here you go. I'm going back to the plank issue. They're saying that Mercedes was like, oh, it's a setup issue because of the sprint weekend. We don't get much time in practice to run high fuel loads, yada, yada, yada. And I get that, and I do buy into it. But did you know that in Baku this year, the reason Alpine broke their curfew after, qualifying an FP1 on a Friday was because they had fears of plank wear. So this isn't a new thing, and it's perfectly possible to have identified it early enough to go, you know what, maybe we should sort this out. But
Was Baku a sprint weekend?
pretty sure it was this year, wasn't it?
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, it's a mistake. I'm not sitting here saying it's not a mistake. It's just unlucky. Well, it is unlucky because it could have been a weekend where they didn't check anyone, or a weekend where they just checked 2 people. So whilst the rules are important, and I understand why they have those plank rules, and I completely agree with intermittent testing of it, I'm still very happy to sit here and go, that was also unlucky, you know.
Yeah. And you're free to do that on this podcast, mate. There's nothing wrong with being a fanboy.
I am staunchly, yeah, but I also think I like what you guys do, which is, you have an affiliation to Red Bull. You are happier, even if you're not a fan of a team, you're happier if a certain team or driver wins than another driver wins. And I posted once on Twitter that any F1 journo who hasn't told you who they support is lying to you. And I got a very, very top, like one of the most famous F1 journalists in the world, drop into my DMs and say, hey, that's not true. And I had a big, long chat with him. And I was saying to him, okay, you might not be a fanboy of a driver, but surely there's some results that make you happier than other results. And he went, well, yeah. And I went, well, there you go. So you've got some bias. I think just be honest about it. If you're a bit of a fan of a driver, no one's going to take that against you. No one cares that Gary Lineker's a Leicester fan. Do they? No one cares that Mika Richards is gunning for City over United. I don't think it's a problem at all to do content, even for journalists, to just be a supporter of one team or another.
Yeah, but that's where you're wrong, Spanners. We actually take pride in hating every team and driver equally on this podcast.
Is it?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, unless one of them wants to hook us up with stuff, which we're quite big fans of Williams at the minute because they're being quite friendly with us.
Was a fan of Ferrari for a good 6 months because they gave me paddock passes for Silverstone.
Yeah.
And so I was in, and that's posh. That is really posh when you're in the little paddock club thing compared to being in the grandstand. So we were there with your complimentary drinks in the little Caribbean bar or whatever it is at Silverstone. And then we wanted to go and see the cars out at Maggots and Beckett's. And it was like going out into the Wild West after the luxury of the paddock club. We walked in amongst the throngs and we were like, oh no, we need to get back to the bar. Like in a desert, you're going, water. We were going, complimentary champagne. I don't think I can go back.
The big question and a recurring theme on this podcast, did you get to use fancy toilets or did you have to use the regular ones?
So I accidentally used the driver toilet initially.
Ooh.
And then I got told off for that. And then someone said that Perez went in just after me. So there you go. Hopefully I left it clean for Perez. But yeah, I did accidentally use the driver toilets.
No wonder he came out complaining and feeling sick afterwards.
Right, there we go.
Ah, dear. But speaking of Ferrari...
Sorry, your live chat distracting me.
Oh, no, they do.
So Spanners fandom is based on we check in who gave us gifts. Yeah, I am open to bribery, as I'm sure Dan is.
Yeah, no, we say, listen, everyone's got a price, including us.
Mine's low.
Hey, beautiful segue. Including everyone having a price, we've got a price, and here's a message from our sponsors. Yes, it's that time again for a word from our sponsors, NordVPN. You know them by now. It's a product that me and Blake have used long before this podcast was even a thing. And we are very thankful for their ongoing support to the podcast and for you listeners. If you're tired of being geo-blocked on Netflix and things like that, then you need yourself NordVPN, and you can get yourself an exclusive discount off your plan and 4 months for free. All you got to do is go to nordvpn.com/engine. It's completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. So what are you doing? Come on, they've been with us for nearly a year now. If you haven't got it by now, what are you waiting for? So that's nordvpn.com/engine. Thank you. Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. There you go. That's the bills paid for this month. And sorry, yeah, but I was going to do my other segue was going to be to Ferrari and Charles Leclerc's miracle one-stop tyre strategy. Did anyone actually believe that was ever going to work from the moment they even muttered it?
Right. So I think they did. And what strikes me most is the complete lack of communication, it seems like, between Leclerc and his race engineer. Because when that final sad message came across, which is, do you think we should change to the other plan? And his answer was like, well, yeah, but ages ago, and it's far too late now. So that means that there was no conversation happening where we go, what do you think we should do? It's time to pull the trigger. It's now or never. And we're at the point of no return. Should we box? That conversation wasn't happening. They just went, no, this isn't going well. Should we go to plan D? And he's like, well, plan C's ruined my race, but it's too late. So I don't know what's going on, like whether Leclerc saw it all going badly and just felt so sad that he just didn't then correct them. Like it felt like he'd given up. You could see his head down in the car.
Yeah. And again, I'm not claiming to be an expert on F1, which makes this point even more poignant. But as soon as I realised that the Ferrari was quick in qualifying, I was like, oh, God, they've set it up for one lap pace rather than race pace on a track that is known to be sandpaper to tyres in the Ferrari, which is known to have absolutely no tyre management at all. This is going to go well. So
it's been a feature of this season that certain teams do well with low tire wear and certain teams do well with high tire wear, and it's been the same with drivers. So it's been a real predictor. So as a content creator, it's been a little bit of a cheat code. So as long as you can sort of look back and go, is this generally a high wear track? Is this generally a low wear track? There are drivers who are going to do better when there's less tire wear. So Piastri is much closer to Norris when there's tire wear. Norris is much closer to Lewis Hamilton. So you can predict based on that, and you can say, right, McLaren actually don't have good race pace tire wear when it's tested, as we saw at CotA. It fell away at the end, and Ferrari's like an extreme version of that. So even when there's lower tire wear, they still are struggling with race pace. But when it's like it was on Sunday, they're just disappearing. And in fact, Leclerc did really well to get it even close to the doomed strategy that they were trying to put him on. So yeah, it's really interesting, because if Pirelli have a limited amount of time in this sport, and the rumors are that they're going to be out after the end of this next contract, and someone like Bridgestone comes in who doesn't want to do this performance wearing tire, then you're going to see the sport completely change. You're going to see different drivers be strong. And you have to even wonder, if this formula wasn't like this, would Lewis Hamilton have had that dominant period over Rosberg? Because I know Rosberg won 2016, but Hamilton always had the faster race pace throughout that time. Would he have been so dominant over Bottas, who everyone was saying was great as he came in, and would he still be ahead on race pace against Russell? So like, this is very much a formula that is around that Pirelli model. You know what I mean? So it's really interesting how critical managing tire stints, and we saw it in Qatar where the stints were shortened. Suddenly all those weaknesses disappeared.
Yeah, thank you. I'd mentally blocked out that whole stupid weekend out of my head, and you just reminded me of the clown show. But going back to your comment about Bottas and Hamilton, I think then at the time Bottas is suffering from what Checo is now, and that's whoever's in that second seat is always going to look crap in comparison to Lewis or to Max. I think they sort of got They were both part of that second driver syndrome.
I still think Hamilton is a better driver than Bottas, but
Oh yeah.
Hamilton like made Bottas look like a mug, and I don't think anyone would have predicted that. But he did, didn't he? He made him look like, okay, so Bottas could qualify, but then what Hamilton would do is sit behind him for the first stint and basically push just enough to make Bottas go over that tyre wear threshold, and then he would just hunt him down and either pull a hammer time undercut. That's that period, wasn't it? That hammer time, or he would just rinse him on track because he was able to manage the tyres through that stint. So, okay, so let's say it wouldn't have changed that dynamic, but it gave Hamilton a superpower over Bottas. And I don't know if that's a strength particularly of Verstappen, but you've got to think it's likely. He's had his whole career with these tyres and he's been faster than his teammates on these tyres for his whole career. It could be a similar sort of phenomenon going on there too.
Yeah. So there you go. And I was going to say something really intelligent.
Sorry, I took you away from Ferrari. That's what I did.
Oh yeah,
I made it all about Hamilton again, didn't I?
I know. There was something else I was going to say as well.
Ferrari's too sad. I want Ferrari to be better so that I can start hating them properly again.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You think at the moment it's fashionable to sort of hate Ferrari, but
they're too. You can't hate a puppy that's on the ground bleeding. You have to. You want to feed that puppy, turn him into a wolf. And then you can go, we have to all fear the hated and dreaded wolf.
Yeah, I hear you. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, though.
By the way, I don't think you have to worry about losing any of your listeners to MissedApex podcast. Looking at the chat, I don't think they want to be converted.
Are they all here?
I don't think they want to be converted to a Hamfosy show. So I think you're going to be all right.
Oh, good, wicked. Yeah. Anyway, hello, chat. How you doing? And if you want to join us for such amazing live episodes, you can do so by looking at Engine Braking on YouTube. There you go, another nice little segue for you.
And you can see what Dan looks like, which is like a beautiful mountain bear.
Homeless. I'm looking very homeless at the moment. And to keep it in the US tradition with the Grand Prix, I'm drinking some Mountain Dew. That's American, isn't it? That's an American thing.
Never had it.
Wouldn't recommend it. There you go.
Very different vibe, this pod.
Oh yeah, no, we ain't got a clue what we're doing here, mate.
Right.
So Mercedes are shite, Ferrari are shite. Who else was shite this weekend? Aston Martin, they were shite.
Oh, is that what we do? Is it like just because I try with the content? It's so much easier to be negative. Like it's so easy to be negative because when people are doing a good job, it doesn't stand out and there's not much to talk about. So you just go, yeah, they done good. It's not very interesting. So it's so easy to go. So I'm going out of my way to go, right, remember to be positive. But if that's not something you're hobbled by, that's brilliant. We can just go on full shit watch.
Yeah, Blake is usually here and he'll sort of interrupt me with some technical babble.
Right.
But because he's a moron and got himself stuck in an airport in America, I've got free reign of this show.
Right. Let's go. Let's slag people off then. Who are we slagging off?
Aston Martin's turn now.
Who, as predicted by Fernando Alonso, finished yet another podium because Alonso said we will never finish off the podium again.
Yeah, if you count the F2 times, then they definitely finished on the podium.
Aston Martin have annoyed me this season. And everything about Aston Martin has annoyed me. So I'm sure they're lovely people, but when it comes to picking apart a path through their PR and what they say, it's been frustrating. So you had Mike Crack bigging up Lance Stroll, saying that when he crashed at Singapore, that was a sign of how good he was. And then Lawrence Stroll, just before this race, said, actually, Lance isn't doing badly. It's unlucky. And he points to some DNFs, and there have been some DNFs, but obviously the pace difference between him and Fernando Alonso isn't down to bad luck. There's something fundamental in the way they drive a racing car. So actually, I was thinking after Qatar or after the race before that, was it Qatar with the sprint race pushing his trainer and stuff? I wondered if that was a tipping point and they were going to go, all right, let's bail out of this now. But the PR that has come out since, I think they're doubling down. I think they're going for it again. And okay, here's a prediction. The Aston Martin pace will disappear or appear to have disappeared over the next 5 remaining weekends. But the gap between Alonso and Stroll will be smaller because that's the only way they can rescue Project Lance.
Okay, I hear you.
Yeah. They're going to turn down the revs. They're going to add some choke to Alonso's engine.
The prediction we had on the last episode, it wasn't really a prediction. It was more of a, this is a funny convenience that all of a sudden the Valkyrie is now perfectly legal to be driven in WEC.
Yeah. And that was part of it. That I thought they have an escape plan, because I wonder, like, do you really want to subject Lance Stroll to another season of being hammered by Alonso? The only way to stop that is to nerf Alonso and just go, okay, well, fine, we're not pushing for podiums, but look, Lance and Fernando, they're quite close together. Or the other thing, which I think you'll like better, is to get Alonso to quit. So like manufacture some massive drama, because it wouldn't be the first time Alonso's had a bit of a falling out with people. That's what I think. And then you need to get Perez in.
I don't think
Perez
Aston Martin need to manufacture drama with Alonso. I think
Just wait.
he's quite
Just
capable of doing it himself.
Yeah, you hear that clock ticking. Yeah, that's the drama being manufactured.
Yeah, he seems to be doing okay so far, but I think that's probably just because he's so far in front of
He's
Stroll.
so far ahead.
He's
Yeah.
just like,
But
whatever.
when the nerfing starts, then it's going to get tense.
Then it's going to get spicy. So yeah, their upgrades this weekend all turned out to be a struggle, because basically they just had constant issues in every session with their brakes overheating. So they'd vastly underestimated the amount of braking cooling that they needed for that. So yeah, bad weekend for that. Alonso out in Q1, which was his first non-Q3 appearance this season, which I thought was quite surprising. I didn't realize he'd been that strong.
Which goes to show that he was only like 0.2 faster than Stroll, I think, as well. In that session, they got knocked out.
Yeah. So they were on the struggle bus all weekend, and what did they do in the race? One of them retired, didn't they? Who was it that retired? Was it
Alonso?
Stroll?
No, Alonso retired. Yep.
Yes, Alonso retired, and then Stroll shithoused his way into some points, didn't he? Through the DNFs and disqualifications and that.
So I was on the Ringer with the host there. The mighty Meg is American, and she was very happy that Logan Sargent had gotten points.
Yes.
But I'm like, okay. I mean, technically, yeah. In a race where 4 people started from the pit lane, I think there was 3 retired from contact, or 2 retired from contact, and then you had 2 people disqualified. It's like, yeah, okay, I'm fine, but I'm not going to do jumping jacks. He did the minimum thing that you would expect him to do, which is finish quite close to his teammate, and he hit the curb sort of more or less by himself into turn 1 as well, and apparently hit the anti-stall as part of that. I don't know whether the anti-stall was
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, either it kicked in or he kicked it in, but it was still like an error. And then you go, okay, well, he finished near his teammate. Good. That's what, okay. Celebrate the point. Like, I don't want to be mean spirited. It's been a tough year. Go and celebrate your point. That's one data point on the journey. But it's the same with Stroll, really. He's had such a poor season that I'm not going to celebrate or see that as redemption, that in a very high attrition race, he's got a point or 2.
Yeah. I'm happy for him. But I agree, Albon's making him look a bit silly, bless him.
And we've got no real evidence. I mean, Albon's doing really well, but his shot at the top, he was comprehensively slower than Verstappen. And that's no shame, because Gasly's had that, Perez has had that as well. But what we really want to see is Albon up against Gasly, Ocon up against Leclerc, or something like that. I don't think we've got a good gauge of how good a marker Albon is.
No, I don't think it will ever happen, but I would like to see Albon back in the second Red Bull seat. I think when he was at Red Bull, that he was in there too soon, too much pressure, and it just all sort of capitulated. I think he would do better this time. I don't know how much better, but I think it would be better. But I think he's been quite open, saying, look, I appreciate Red Bull, but no, I'm done. And I can respect that. I don't blame him. Oh dear. Anyway, who wants to work for Helmut Marko anyway? Not me.
Well, that Verstappen does, because all the rumors that are definitely true that have been swirling out of Red Bull this week, one of them was, if Marko goes, Verstappen goes.
I doubt that. I can see a scenario where Marko is probably corporately managed out, is probably the nice way of saying it, because I know Marko and Mateschitz, they were really close, and I'm not sure what that relationship's like with his son. his son's really nice. We've met him a few times. His son's really nice, but I don't know. Marco's getting on.
Yeah, he didn't do himself any favors. Just being very outspoken and then falling foul of bad. It's bad PR. Like if you had a PR person vetting his every comment, a lot of those comments wouldn't have gone out. But the unvetted comments sort of got him into a little bit of hot water. But that's how he thinks. That's how he is. And since then, there's been a never-ending stream of quotes. So you might think, okay, Helmut, let's just keep under the radar for a little bit. Let's let this blow over. But let's say after all the kind of Mexican comments, he was then being quoted and interviewed by every news source in Europe. It's like he went out of his way. Someone said, lie low, Helmut, for a bit. And he just went, no, you don't tell me what to do. I'm going to double the amount of quotes I do. So that's interesting. Yeah.
That's the thing, though. He answers to no one. I think the only person he answers to in the Red Bull hierarchy is the shareholders now. I think he's at that echelon where he's certainly not going to listen to Christian, and he's certainly not going to listen to any of the PR people working for Red Bull Racing when they say, Marco, just 10 minutes, just go walk it off.
Yeah. I've got a Red Bull question, though. If Helmut Marko leaves, like that role doesn't need to be replaced, does it? It's not like he's the front jack man. They just wouldn't replace that role.
I think they would replace that role. And you know who I think they should? And I don't know if they would, but I think they should.
Mr. Tumble from BBC.
No, Sebastian Vettel.
Ah, really?
Yeah.
Nice.
I think I can see a scenario where they get Vettel to come in and do a sort of driver mentoring role.
So PanCon5, sorry, has distracted me there by saying Dr. Marco will be passionately adored this weekend. Will Helmut Marko be in Mexico? I don't think he should go. I don't think Red Bull should take him.
If you thought those boos and the chanting of Checo at the US Grand Prix were bad.
All right, what do you think of the boos?
I don't care.
Do you not care?
I honestly don't care. If you want to pay $400, $500 to go to a race circuit and boo a multi-millionaire, crack on. You go for it, mate.
Yeah, I've come from football stands. That's my sporting fan background. And you definitely can boo. And as a Colchester United fan, most of those boos were directed at, our own players.
Yeah.
And that's happening at the moment. I picked the wrong season to start following Colchester United. The captain they were losing 5-0. They lost 5-0 away to Forest Green. And they went to the fans at the away end, their own fans. And the captain was there for 10 minutes, like apologizing as the fans were booing him, and manager's gone now. But yeah, I think you're right. It is part of sport. And in F1, people have kind of clutched their pearls about booing. And I think it depends on the intent. When it's pantomime booing, I mean, that's fine. I mean, there's obviously there's an England-Germany sporting rivalry that's very much come from football. So when it was Hamilton versus Vettel, sorry, I took you off the Vettel train there. But when it was Hamilton versus Vettel, he was very much the pantomime villain. So I've been at Silverstone, 2013. I think his engine chugged to a halt down the home straight, and it was good-natured booing. So you go, well, what was that booing at Verstappen? I know people said that it was a politician, but I've watched it back. I've watched it back 100 times, actually, Dan. No, I've watched it back a few times. And you could see the moment he's celebrating and he realized that there's booing coming, and he's head down and he's lives underneath his cap, and it's disappointing. I think it's not nice for the drivers. I know in Zandvoort he advised Hamilton, well, just ignore it, just push it out of your head. I think those things are easier said than done. Like in a moment, I think as a content creator, you'll be resistant to most of the comments, but every now and then one will just come and get you and just tickle a nerve. And it looked like that had happened to Verstappen. And then you feel sad, even as someone who's not a fan. You go, oh, he didn't get to enjoy his moment because of that booing. And it didn't sound actually that good-natured. So I don't know. I'm torn. I went from pro-booing and now I'm more on the fence. Yeah, I was pro-booing because it's a sport and you can just boo people. And now I've softened on that and I've gone, I think maybe the nature of booing in sport has changed. So now it feels suddenly in a toxic social media environment, maybe more of that has translated onto the booing. Does that make sense? So now I'm more anti-booing because I think I haven't changed. The booing has changed.
The intent behind the booing has changed.
Yeah, I think so.
I I get where you're coming from. Like you say, pantomime booing and sort of like they say,
Yeah.
referee get some glasses sort of thing. You know, very funny. But then when it's sort of more, I don't know what you'd call it, but yeah, I know what you're getting at. Yeah.
So you should go, boo, but I respect you as an athlete, but as a sporting rival, boo. If you can make that
You're
distinction.
very successful, but I fucking hate you.
We admire your work rate, but boo.
Yeah.
I don't know if they can do that.
No, I don't know. They should definitely do that. But yeah, like I say, mate, if people want to pay $500 to go boo a multi-millionaire who's going to go cry himself to sleep with the winner's trophy, then crack on, mate. Crack on. What was I something else I was going to say? This is the recurring theme
I don't
on
know
this
how you do
podcast.
your show, but I write things down. I write down what I'm going to say. I plan it.
I've got show notes, and I'm just don't care. We're going nuts. We don't care this week. There's nothing I can add technical, right, that Blake wouldn't add. So, I mean...
we can guess technical stuff.
Yeah. I mean, what have we got? We've got, so Mercedes, we slagged them off. Ferrari, we slagged them off. Aston, we slagged them off. The
Sargent,
stewards,
slagged off Sargent.
Sargent, Stroll. I don't know who else left. Is there else left to slag off?
There's McLaren, and we slagged off their race pace a little bit, but they are genuinely impressive, to be fair. So, like, that upgrade really came in. Oh, this is a question I was going to ask you earlier. So, if you talked about Ferrari setting up for qualified rather than setting up for the race, and this is a genuine question I was asking on Sunday, which is, do you have to choose between one or the other? And it can't be that, because you wouldn't be so stupid as to keep setting up for Saturday. Like, Ferrari keep routinely doing well in qualifying for the last 2 years and then don't have a race pace to match. But you wouldn't just keep doing that if you could choose. And I remember 2013, Mercedes had a very similar issue where they were on fire in qualifying. Do you remember 2013? They used to be on pole by like 9/10 of a second and then just drop down the grid like a stone. And the only tracks they could win were where you couldn't overtake. So I think they won Silverstone. They won Silverstone that year, I think. So yeah, there was and that was when Vettel did they parked the silver bus comment. So I was thinking, well, it can't just be a choice. Otherwise, they would sometimes accidentally set up for race pace and no Saturday pace. So it's got to be it's got to do with the way they warm the tires up. So if you're very aggressive on the tires, you can get a hot lap in, but then they're not going to last throughout a stint. And you go, yeah, but Ferrari have had that issue fundamentally for nearly 2 years now, and they haven't been able to sort that out. But McLaren look like they're in danger of doing that as well. I was hoping the upgrade might change that, but fundamentally, for whatever reason, they seem to have a car. Oh, this would be interesting. Do they struggle more on the rear limited tracks, for example, like CotA was? So that would be an interesting one to try and shuffle through the data and pick out, did they struggle on race pace on high wear circuits where the wear was at the rear tire? But yeah, so I do wonder, like, is there someone in the team working on tire management, tire saving, or is it once you get your concept, you've got the tire where you don't know until the season starts, and then you're stuck with it?
Yeah, you can't inherently build a car and then while you're building it go, okay, we're going to build this to be really good on tire wear. You don't know that until you get it to testing, and then you sort of either end up in a scenario where you're like, oh, cool, it's good on tires, great, we can work with that, or oh Jesus, it's chewing the tires, great, we're going to have to compromise everything to sort of balance that out. But the way Ferrari, I can't obviously speak for them, but I think inherently that car is bad on tires. I think that's just a given. I don't think no matter what they do with it, it's just bad on tires, that car, and that can be the geometry of the suspension, the way the mechanics of the suspension works, the downforce, things like that. But essentially, it all comes down to how much energy can you put into the tire, maintain performance without shredding the tires. And Ferrari, I think, set their car up in a way where they could put a lot of energy into their tire quick and make it quick over that one lap. And then when it comes to the race, they were like, oh, fuck, we've gone too far here. We're putting too much energy into these tires and we're just cooking them and burning them off.
And where with such a difference in how the tires manage that race pace, it does make Saturday like annoying from a guesswork point of view, because every Saturday, the poor Ferrari fans, they get their hopes up, don't they? They get that little moment of hope, which I let them. I always build it up and go, God, look how fast they look. They'll probably definitely win on Sunday. So yeah, so like this is why I said qualifying kind of feels like it's never been less important, unless you're at a track where passing is impossible, like Singapore. McLaren, even with their upgrades, and this is someone with a lot of love for McLaren. I'm not dumping on McLaren, but I do feel like this has been a little bit of a false dawn. So it feels like, yes, at Singapore they were able to win, they were able to hang on, and it was difficult to overtake, and they could have that little game of DRS swapping with Carlos Sainz. And they've had other events where Mercedes have dropped the ball and been so far behind that the race pace doesn't then make that gap up. So I'm worried that McLaren well-wishers are getting their hopes up a little bit. Also, we're in a period where the other teams aren't developing as much and they're on their B spec. So I don't know, when we get a little bit of a reset in the off season, because everybody gets a little bit of a winter offset, I think that McLaren are going to settle comfortably back into 4th and 5th.
Yeah, I've seen some people mention this online. They're just like, "Oh, I'm a McLaren fan, and I can't wait for us to finish 6th next year," sort of thing. Like where they just go backwards. It's
Yeah,
just like,
sorry,
yeah.
McLaren fan, but enjoy this season because no one else is developing, and even like Red Bull aren't developing anymore, are they? So, like, we might get to like Brazil and get a Mercedes win at Brazil.
Let's be honest, Red Bull don't need to develop that car. They could stop developing it in March, and I think they'd be all right. To be perfectly honest with you. So yeah. Right. I believe, Spanners, correct me if I'm wrong, but I've only got 6 minutes left with you because you're on a bit of a hard time tonight, aren't you?
I think it's relaxed a little
Or is
bit
it?
because
Okay.
I was a good boy with my voiceovers and I got them done. But I am. If you think you're sick of the sound of my voice,
No.
listeners, I've been having to listen to this stupid voice all day.
Good. No, just checking. I didn't want to overrun because we have 2 very important segments.
Okay,
as
let's
part
do it.
of
Let's
this
do it.
show.
Let's do the segments.
I'd love to give you the bumper for them. However, I forgot to load them into my soundboard before we went live.
What's the segment? And we'll
this is
create
Fraud
something.
Watch.
Fraud Watch with Dan and Spanners. Let's talk about the things that are not true. Let's do some skiing on the hill of truth, and that is the song that'll do.
Perfect, thank you. So Fraud Watch is basically where we pick our bad thing of the weekend, be it team, driver, anything to do with the F1 weekend. Yeah, so as you are our guest, I'll let you go first. What was your bad thing of the weekend?
Sprint weekend. Sprints, all sprints in general. Thank you to your man, Max Verstappen, there for saying the quiet bit out loud, because this is the thing we said right from the beginning, even when it was being proposed, is that you can't have a little bit of a Grand Prix and call it an event. You can't. You can't have a third of a Grand Prix and go, that's your sprint race, because the whole point of a Grand Prix in the Pirelli era is that the varying tire compounds and the fact that they will wear differently with different drivers creates strategy and creates deltas that encourage overtaking strategy, wheel-to-wheel action that develops and brews. We've come to learn over the last 6 or 7 years with these tires that stint 1 is obviously corner 1, and then there's this tire management chess game, and you can look for little clues in the timing screens, so you can kind of go, oh, okay, they're all maintaining 142s. Well, if they're all maintaining 142s, they must be tire saving. Oh, Hamilton's done a little bit of a push with a 140, so that's closer to his real pace. Oh, they've responded up front, so are they going to respond to this pace and wear out their tires, or are they going to drop back? And it's been this stint 1 game of chess that then leads to all the strategy, and that's been the best bit of Grand Prix racing, really, from a strategy point of view. You can't then just take that first bit and go, well, that's the sprint race, just on you go. It is like cooking up hard pasta, and the sprint race is just a bunch of angry F1 fans who have to watch it because we're addicted. They know that, just crunching on their uncooked F1 pasta.
Someone in the chat says, arguably, the only thing Max has been more consistent on than his performance is his hatred of sprint races.
I'm glad he said it like that, said it fully out loud. This is rubbish. All you're doing is you're taking away. It was worse when it set the grid for the Grand Prix. That was worse because it unshuffled anything exciting from qualifying. So it is slightly better that it's separate, but also Saturday is my Grand Prix day. Why not have if you want to have a silly sprint, you do that. I don't know. Do it on a Friday. Do it on the Saturday morning, so that we can just have our Saturday afternoon qualifying and our normal Sunday Grand Prix. I feel like they're determined to make this work because the viewing figures, as much as I don't like the sprints, I'm going to watch it. All right, I'm going to, and I'll use my taco analogy, which is 2 tacos is the amount of tacos I want. But if you give me 4 tacos, I'm going to eat 4 tacos under protest. I'm going to say I don't need 4 tacos, but I'll continue eating them. So I have to binge watch any F1 that's on. But it's not as good. The quality of the weekend is not as good. Every individual session, competitive session, is diluted by having all those sessions. And Verstappen's right. We went into Sunday knowing Ferrari don't really have a chance. McLaren are going to struggle. Actually, Mercedes are looking pretty good. And that Red Bull have got the pace to come from 6th place and go and win. So yeah, he was right. It's like opening your Christmas presents on Christmas Eve, and then you wake up in the morning and go, oh, I've only got this small one from Aunt Sylve, and it's just going to be like a sock. Just one sock because Aunt Sylve's horrible.
Yeah, I've only got this one present under the
Do you know what
tree
they're going
from
to do?
Joe Bauer, and it's a sanding block.
a sanding block in his pocket. Oh, look at that! Look at that! The plank's worn down.
Measure it.
They're gonna keep it because because of the viewing figures. So they're gonna start going more and more ridiculous now. So I would say get braced for reverse championship grid, which at least will be fun. If they're gonna do the sprint race, which they are going to, it should be substantially different. It's got to be a completely different thing. So carbon fiber fest. But the thing is, reverse championship grid is probably going to be more fun than the Grand Prix. So then we'll make that the Grand Prix and make the endurance-y 2-hour one, make that the endurance Saturday for the main event, which is the reverse championship smashy race.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Don't half-ass it. If you're going to do it, let's do it. Let's completely mix it up. Bring back the Hypersoft or the Ultrasoft just for the sprints only. Make it reverse grid. If you're going to do it, do it. So yeah,
you could even say, if you have a Hypersoft in, then you're introducing a pit stop into the sprint race, which, then at least there's something.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one.
Or I could have a strength of character to just ignore the sprint races. But I don't have that.
So my nomination for this week's Fraud Watch is probably going to come as no surprise to anyone, but it's whoever cocked up or dreamt up that Ferrari strategy by making Charles do the one stop. At least, Mercedes tried it with Hamilton and they tried it with Lando, but they're very quick to realize this isn't going to work. So they recovered.
Not quite quick enough.
No. But not like Ferrari, who were like, no, we're leaving Charles out there. And in 13 laps from the end of the race, we're going to ask him if he wants to change strategy. What do you want him to do at that point?
Horrendous. When you look at who's the strategist at Red Bull?
Hannah,
is it Smith?
Yes.
Yeah. So they to me, they knew exactly what the strategy was going to be. And whilst everybody was going, I think we can make a one-stop work, I think Red Bull the whole time were like, no, 2-stop. And they went for it. They were decisive. And it reminded me of like Red Bull in 2018, say Red Bull 2017, 2018, where they didn't have the car, but I felt like they were the best team operationally throughout all of that. And they kept affecting the battles up front by being aggressive. And they seemed to favor, okay, let's not kick the arse out of a tire. Let's do the strategy that actually lets us go racing. And the amount of times they pulled the trigger on the early stops and then made everyone ahead of them panic and go, oh my God, no, we can't now ignore the charging Red Bulls on the fast tires behind us. And that's kind of, I think if they hadn't have done that, if they hadn't been on a 2-stop, I think more of the team's 1-stop might have worked, because like in Singapore, you get everybody slowing down to make sure that they do the 1-stop because track position is so important. Maybe if Red Bull had gone for a 1-stop, other people wouldn't have been, panicking. Because you look at Lewis Hamilton in that window between Red Bull and his stop, they were looking for a 1-stop, and then Hamilton's lap times hung on, and then they kind of went off a cliff. So you go, yeah, but that wouldn't have been an issue if Red Bull was still out. Red Bull would also, their lap times would be going out and out and out. So this is what I loved about Red Bull's strategy in the before time. It was just this front foot. They're always on the front foot
Proactive,
strategy.
not
They're
reactive.
proactive. They had a plan and they stuck to it, and they caught everybody napping on the strategy front.
Yeah. I don't know this is the reason why. However, I would like, in my mind, I'm taking this as canon and as fact, in that Verstappen's medium hard strategy, where he went from medium to medium.
Yes.
I really hope that was partially down to Red Bull's strategy going, look, if we put Max on another medium, we're going to make all the other teams absolutely trip over themselves trying to figure out whether to do a one-stop or not.
What? It worked.
So,
And
yeah.
it was so decisive. And it also sent a message that we know what we're doing. You're dithering over 1 or 2. We know exactly what we're doing, and you're wrong.
Yeah, because looking at it now, Max was the first one to do medium, and then everyone else. There's a couple of people that followed him onto the medium, and then some people went onto the hard. But yeah, I think it just caused a lot of confusion down the pit lane. Because I think, but yeah, no, I'm down for that. So
Just
yeah,
another thing to hate about Red Bull. Brilliant strategy.
Yep.
The pit stops drive me mad. What is it that lets Red Bull do 2-second pit stops, and then you've got Mercedes regularly doing 3-second plus?
I was going to say Mercedes. Sorry, Red Bull. They've got a very cool pit stop practice setup. Where
Have they?
Yeah, so they have a full, basically effective pit lane built in the building, and it's not secret. You can go look at it on.
Have you had a go? Do they let you have a go?
Fuck no.
Oh, they don't let you have a go.
I mean, if I wanted to and I asked, probably yeah. But I've seen those guns, mate. They will break every bone in your wrist. And unfortunately, as a computer guy, I need my wrists and fingers to work to earn a living. So. But yes, they have obviously a full setup, a full gantry, and then they've got an electric car which they can get someone to sit in and drive it in. And yeah, no, they work very hard.
So Wolf said we've had he finally has admitted the pit stops aren't good enough, but he said they've had this approach which they share with high handicap golfers, which was they were trying to avoid the blow up pit stops where they lose like 10 seconds and sort of settling for a 3-second stop. And that's what I do in golf. You know, I don't go for the big curl around the tree, just punt it back onto the fairway. We'll get there eventually. I'll settle for my double bogey. But to hear, you know, one of the top teams in F1 saying, no, we deliberately had this cautious avoid the double bogey strategy to pit stops is actually quite, you go, oh, wow. Okay. Okay. Well, I mean, look at what Williams are doing. Look at what Red Bull are doing. Surely that's got to be the aim. You know, the wheels aren't flying everywhere on Red Bull stops. In the worst case scenario, it's a little slower. And the slow stop for Verstappen was down to the brake issue, I think, at the weekend. But it's really rare to see a 3.5-second stop for a non-Perez Red Bull.
Yeah, I think it's either Max or Checo. I can't remember which one. They came in and I saw the pit stop, and there was a slight issue with the rear left, and I was like, "Oh God, it's a slow stop." It was still a 3-second stop, but for a Red Bull stop, that seemed like eternity. Whereas a lot of the other teams, 3 seconds, it's not their worst day at the office.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm trying to find it now, but there was some really interesting stats someone put out on Twitter earlier where they were talking about how Mercedes pit stops. I think only 5% of them have been under 2.5 seconds or something mental like that. I don't know.
There you go. So Sabu's come in with a bit of the stats here.
Yeah, here we go. Yeah.
So here we go. Yeah. Red Bull, 45% of pit stops are below 2.5. Mercedes, 2% are under 2.5. That, when you look at the margins of the race on Sunday, you say, well, the pit stops, you know, that is well within the realms of, if Mercedes pit stops were better, they would have won that race. If they had been more decisive with the strategy, they would have won that race. And, you know, and then there's a bunch of other on-track stuff. So if you happen to be a Lewis Hamilton fan, that is frustrating. And you go, okay, it's fine now this season, but what if there's a title contention year next year, or 2025, or even 2026? That's not going to be good enough. And now you kind of scroll back to 2021 and cast your mind back to some slow stops there, some weird strategy calls back there in the tightest championship we've seen in this decade or this century. And you go, well, it's a big issue. It's an issue.
Yeah, like where Mercedes purposely sabotaged Lewis Hamilton during the Monza race, so he had no choice but to block Max Verstappen into turn one, and poor innocent Max had no
don't.
choice but to take avoiding action.
And Hamilton, he went and he jammed his car underneath Paul Verstappen's car, didn't he? There and then was
Yep.
headbutting his rear tire from
Yeah.
inside the cockpit. When will he stop?
Yeah, he was like, "Oh, don't worry, I'll get pictures of their floor for you. Don't worry." Wham!
Triggered.
Yeah.
Triggered.
Oh, Jesus, bloody hell! But that's the standard of driving you get from people from Stevenage, mate. You know,
I've worked in
attest to
Stevenage
that.
for 8 years, and I can't disagree.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, right. Well, now we've upset all of Team LH once again. It's time for the Good Boy Award. Can you give me?
We get to be
Give
nice.
me, can you give me something for the Good Boy Award?
I am gonna give the Good Boy Award then to. Can I give it? Does it have to be a person?
No, it could be any same rules.
It
Anything
can be an ethereal concept if it
Yeah.
wants to be. I just go back to like the layout of CotA. I absolutely love it. I think
Yeah.
I just the whole circuit. I know people don't like the Americanisms. Some people get a bit upset about the in the red corner, it's Fernando Alonso. I love all that. I love the fireworks that nearly took out the helicopter camera.
Oh God, yeah, I saw that.
So close. It was so close. Like, do you know, like I hate helicopters, and I've been in many helicopters, unfortunately, and every single time I've just assumed I will probably die in this helicopter. It's the most fragile aircraft you could imagine, and they were firing pyrotechnics. Those spinny blade things, that's all that keeps them in the air. There's no secret magic. So yeah, that was close. But yeah, I love the fact that they just go all out. I like the fact that there's concerts there. I like the fact that they went for just this big circuit, emulating some of the best stuff from around the world. Turn one is probably one of the most interesting racing corners on the F1 calendar. And there's a few of those. There's a few of those error generators that invite a lunge. And yeah, I love the track. I think they get it. They get the show. They get the fundamentals of racing, and bring some more support series there as well. So it's a shame that we're not seeing as much F2 and as much F3, but really make that festival of motorsport. And I would love them to build another CotA. I'm not looking forward to Vegas, and Miami has not found a place in my heart at the moment. So yeah, big up for CotA, really flying the flag for racing in the United States.
Yeah, and also flying the flag for when you build something, make sure you build it correctly so you don't get
don't build it on a swamp. That was a mistake. They shouldn't have built it on a swamp. But apart from building it on a swamp, they did very, very well. I like CotA. Go CotA.
Yeah. Yes, and someone also reminding us in the chat that they had F1 Academy there this weekend.
Yes.
Shamefully, I have to admit, I didn't actually see any of it.
I caught some of the practice session, and like the risk is that those cars look very small and slow around a big track, and that's why Formula E isn't going off and doing Brands Hatch or Silverstone. So actually, they didn't look bad around that track. They looked like pretty meaty cars. And I think it's a step down in power from W Series. But like when you see W Series in person, you think, oh, those cars look small. Maybe they're underpowered. You see it in person, and those cars look meaty. They're proper race cars. And it looked like the drivers were challenged coming to the track limits. I didn't catch the race, but by all reports, there was some good racing there as well. It's a little unfair, I think, that they have Garcia there, who, as soon as she was announced to be there, like that, she was a shoo-in to go on and win that championship because she'd had all that experience in W Series as well. But it looks like it's all gone well. So I was kind of hoping it wouldn't be televised this season because I wanted them to just have a chance to get on with it and find the feet for the series to make sure they've ironed out anything that would make them look like a joke and just give chauvinist bigots the chance to jump up and down and go, oh, see, and say the things they say. You only have to look at when Jess Hawkins did the test laps in the Aston Martin.
What were her lap times?
Yeah, everyone's desperate to try and shoot her down. And then you look at like the young driver tests. There's been like 3 or 4. There's been Bierman. There's been a few. You just don't see that same level of comment. So I feel like if you're going to create this breeding ground for women in single-seater racing, I would love to see like media pressure just taken away. But it doesn't look like they're going that way. So by all accounts, it looked good. The racing was good, and good luck for next season.
Anyone that can beat me in a karting race is all right in my book, which basically means everyone, to be fair. So yeah, good luck to them.
This is where you promo all my stuff, so everyone knows where to follow me, and I get a little
No, I've
perks
got to do
of
my good thing
attention.
of the weekend first. Yeah,
Have you?
yeah. I didn't give you my good thing yet. What's my? Fuck it. I'm going for it. I'm going all patriotic for a country I've got no part in. I'm going. My good thing is Logan Sargent shithousing a point from the disqualifications of Charles and Hamilton.
Stealing a living.
Yeah, stealing a living, like I did in F1. Now it's Logan's turn. Good on you, son.
Yeah,
What the fuck is a kilometre?
You've done. I keep seeing that everywhere. You got to go. Well, okay, you're allowed your happy day, but I'm going to stick with he did the absolute minimum required, and the fact that that is being celebrated a lot is actually quite damning.
Yeah,
so
he did the bare minimum, and it paid off for him. Spanners. He is the hero to many slacker out there in the world.
Yeah, he's been quiet quitting since the beginning. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So show me consistently being up with Albon, and I'll give him his props. But I don't begrudge a 1 point party.
Okay, fair enough. Right, so yeah, I think that's pretty much it now. So this is the bit where you get to plug your shitty show.
Yes, Missed Apex podcast, where we have a panel of varying competence yelling things about F1 so soon after the race that there's a very low probability that any of them are right. But we do strive to be the first podcast released out of the door. And in fact, hey Dan, this is quite funny because the race ended at 11, quite late.
I was going to say you were so early.
We then recorded our show at 11:30, and I had it out by 2 a.m. But we're actually, I think, the second highest podcast in the US charts at the moment, and third in the UK charts.
Right.
This was on Monday, just because no one else had bothered recording really late at night, and they hadn't woken up yet. So we had this brief moment of glory. But we do try and get the race reviews out nice and quick. So it's a quick place, as long as you don't mind in inaccuracy and a lack of post-race information as a baked-in part of the show. You might want to come and hang out with us on a Sunday night.
Yeah, you were so early this week that you found out Lewis got disqualified halfway through your show.
Live on the stream, and I did not hide my emotions well. I was so disappointed. And people are reveling in that. They're like, yeah, cry more. Yeah, cry more. Yeah, I was. I couldn't. I cried all my tears. I cried them all out because that's sport and I care.
That is why you slack off until Tuesday, like we do sometimes. And then you get the full picture.
Your live chat just said, Spanners, we're here listening to this. Do you really think we want accurate info?
Good point.
And hello, live chat. It's been lovely hanging with you.
Yeah, no, Blake is the one that's got all the sort of relevant info. I just sort of stumble my way through it, swear a little bit, make a reference to Traeger Grills in the hope they'll sponsor us one day.
This has been, I have to say, you have a different podcast style and a different presenting style to any other F1 host and any other F1 pod. The vibe has been disarmingly, it's been disarmingly relaxed. I think you're a wonderful, kind human being. I've loved knowing you over the last 4 or 5 years, and I hope you keep at it and you keep this podcast going, because I love seeing you do F1 content.
Yeah, you hear that, Blake? Fuck off. We don't need you. You can stay in immigration.
Yeah. Oh, is that? Are they not letting him back in
now? No.
Are they not letting him back in?
He missed his connecting flight. I think
double check his passport. I think just to
Yeah, he's been caught smuggling sandwiches back for catering. Right, that's it. That's the end of the show. You can all piss off now.
Follow me, Spanners Ready on Twitter if you want as well.